So this story is one that has been developing over about a week now, and this has gone through several phases of reporting, and I want to talk about it now. Boulder climate activist dies after apparent act of protest outside U.S. Supreme Court on Earth Day. This is from the Denver Post. Friend of Wynn Bruce says his actions in Washington, D.C. were planned to bring attention to the climate crisis. Is coffee okay? I drink coffee every single day, multiple times a day. Anyway, this happened. I don't know what date Earth Day was. I have like problems with time perception, and it's not giving me a date, so I'm just gonna like look. I don't know, like Earth Day, April, whatever. What is Earth Day? April 22. Okay, so this is a couple days ago. So someone set themselves on fire outside of the U.S. Supreme Court. And this was kind of like covered up by the media. This was like kind of like, I remember seeing reports about it. Like it was initially reported as man sets himself on fire outside the Supreme Court. And it wasn't really until like one of this person's friends went to Twitter to discuss it, right? Because this is, oh shit, this is my friend who set themselves on fire, right? And then, it started to circulate what his reasoning was. And it's been like a really strange scenario to watch the media kind of discuss this over the last couple of days. I was going to talk about this the other day, but then I ended up not doing a show on Saturday, so I kind of forgot yesterday. But anyway, now it seems that a lot of mainstream reports are talking about why he did this, et cetera, et cetera. So let's read this from the Denver Post. The Boulder man who set himself on fire in front of the U.S. Supreme Court on Earth Day apparently acted in protest of inaction on climate change. Wynn Bruce, 50, a climate activist, died Saturday, a day after his actions in front of the nation's highest court in Washington, D.C. He was airlifted for treatment, but did not survive. Kriti Kanko, who describes herself as Bruce's friend and a Zen Buddhist priest in Boulder, said on Twitter that Bruce's actions were a planned protest. Quote, "This is a deeply fearless act of compassion to bring attention to the climate crisis," she said in a tweet. She declined to comment further when reached by the Denver Post on Sunday, saying she needed some time to grieve. However, she told the New York Times she was not completely sure of Bruce's motivations. The newspaper reported saying that people are being driven to extreme amounts of climate grief and despair, and that what I do not want to happen is that young people start thinking about self-immolation. There are indications that Bruce had contemplated this action for some time. On his Facebook page, Bruce posted in October 2020 about a free educational course about climate change. A year ago, on April 20, 2021, he added a comment to that post, 411, an apparent reference to the directory assistance telephone number people use to call for information. Then, in October of 2021, he added a fire emoji to that comment. According to a publicly visible edit history earlier this month, on April 2, Bruce added the date that he would set himself on fire. The final message read 411 fire emoji 42222. Now, to me personally, I find it very interesting that he like made this kind of plan in like a random comment on like a multiple year old like I don't know. That's an interesting factor for me. Bruce, who had lived in Boulder since 2000, identified as a Buddhist who had worked as a photographer. He referenced and shared his teachings of Shambhala Buddhism, founded in Boulder, on his Facebook page. Jesse Friedman, executive director of the Boulder Shambhala Center, did not return a request for comment. Brianna Birch, a spokeswoman for the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C., said Sunday that to her knowledge, investigators did not find any sort of manifesto or note with Bruce's body. She said police were still looking into his motive. Bruce set himself on fire in an apparent imitation of the Vietnamese monks who burned themselves to death in protest during the Vietnam War. His friend, his Facebook page commemorated the death of Thich Nhat Hanh, an influential Zen Buddhist master and anti-war activist who died in January, who also in a letter wrote in 1965 to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had idolized those monks. Kriti cited that letter in another tweet on Bruce's death Sunday morning. There's a lot of info here. You can read into it more. But I'm going to summarize it. Basically, for what I'm not going to be one of those. There's a lot of really, in my opinion, ignorant people that do this whole don't glorify suicide thing. Me personally, if I cannot judge anyone for killing themselves, I will not ever judge anyone for killing themselves, unless it's someone I dislike. Then I'm going to make fun of them. To be honest with you, I'm just letting my biases. Like if a Republican politician killed themselves or something, I'd be like, and I'm not saying they should do that, and I'm not saying anyone should kill themselves. But what I am saying is, people have the right to end their own lives. I support that. People have the right to end their own lives in whatever way they want. It's better, in my opinion, if you've decided to kill yourself, it's better to do so in an act of protest to get attention for a cause you believe in than to just shoot your brains out at your desk. That's my opinion. And I understand why and how people would come to the conclusion that they should kill themselves or they should end their own lives, to use a little bit more sanitary language. I don't agree with anyone saying that, other than anyone who's his friends or family who's been directly affected by this person's decision. Random jackass 69 on Twitter or on YouTube comment section has no right to say, oh, why you have to kill yourself, bro? Who cares what you have to say? You do not know this person. You do not know what was going on in their head. Please shut the fuck up. Now, obviously, we don't want people to kill themselves. We want people to, live a happy life. But that doesn't happen all the time. The world, as it exists right now, is garbage. It's really fucking garbage. It's really fucking bad. It's really bad, the world we live in. So, again, I can't fault someone for wanting to kill themselves. I've had suicide attempts in my life, right? Am I glad that I didn't kill myself? You bet your sweet ass bippy I'm glad I didn't kill myself, because my life is a lot better than it was during that moment of my life. But at the same time, everyone's lives are different, right? So, he also had these, spiritual and religious beliefs that he believed very heavily in, that motivated him to do so in this way, in a way that would garner attention. I respect that. I will say I respect that. And so, again, it's interesting that mainstream media did not really kind of pick up on this until today, and I'm glad that they're starting to pick up on it, why he did this. And again, climate activism is something that's extremely important. We're seeing the mass extinction. Again, I know we often as humans talk about things in human terms of, what is the human death toll of climate change so far, right? But, let's just not even talk about humans. We are now facing a mass extinction, right? There are thousands of species of plants, animals, right? Other kinds of creatures and life on this planet, right? Thousands of species per year that are going extinct. Per year, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, okay? That alone is cause for alarm, right? And then we look at the human impact, right? There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have been killed in these freak storms like hurricanes and all that kind of stuff that's happening all over the place, right? We're talking about heat exhaustion in a lot of these places. Look at the Pacific Northwest last summer. There was 80 deaths linked to heat exhaustion in the Pacific Northwest last summer. Something like that. I don't know, over the course of a week over this heat wave. And this is happening, look at the Middle East. They're dealing with hundreds of people being, just dying of heat exhaustion, not having enough water, not having enough air conditioning, that kind of stuff, access to better environments to just live in, right? So again, and that's just death toll. We often think, oh, did you die? Well, if you didn't die, you're it's like the COVID. Oh, well, only 0 whatever percent of people die. Yeah, what about the fucking 40% of people who get long COVID, right? So now let's talk about how many people have been displaced. Millions of human beings have been displaced by climate change. They've had to move away from where they were before because of things like fires destroying their homes, because, they just can't literally live in certain areas of the planet anymore, right? And it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And politicians ignore it. Or even worse, they pretend like they're doing something, like Joe Biden. I'm going to do something. He's done nothing. He has done zero. He has done nothing, not at all. Right? So we're fucked. And I just want to say that. We are fucked. Okay? And again, just to be very clear, not in the good dick way. We are not getting fucked in the good dick way. At least at this current moment in time. And so again, if someone is 50 years old, right? And let's say they've got some health conditions, something like that, I don't know this person's personal health history, but it's possible they're 50, they've got some chronic condition, right? They maybe, something happened to them and they feel like they don't have much time left anyway. Might as well go out doing a symbolic gesture than, die in some way that people won't notice. That's my, so I can't tell you what was going on through this person's head, but what I can tell you is what the message they left behind was, and that I agree with the message. And, again, unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think anything's going to change. Right? The media doesn't care. Right? The people don't care. Human beings don't care. Politicians certainly don't care. We're just going to run out the clock until we all die. That's the trajectory we are on. I mean, we're seeing the media talk about ridiculous bullshit like, oh, maybe Vladimir Putin should use nukes because that would cool the planet. Like that fucking insane garbage. Right? Like, we're fucked. And again, I try my best not to think about it. In my day-to-day. I try my best when I'm reading a book or playing with my dog not to think about the fact that the world's going to fucking set itself on fire in my lifetime. But that's going to happen. Right? 30, 40 years from now, it's over. It's game over. It's over. It's done. Unless we do something. And we've been going through this loop, this cycle for since the 1970s of climate change is real. Maybe it's not that real. Maybe it's not real. Let's just kick the can down the road. Next quarter. Let's wait next quarter. We need to get our profits next quarter. Maybe next quarter. Maybe next quarter. And then fucking 50 quarters later, 30 years later, here we are. We're fucked. We're fucked. So again, rest in power. Wynn Allen Bruce. My opinion, I will not in any way criticize his actions. I think it is a little silly to criticize his actions instead of focusing on why he did what he did. Everyone has their own reasons for suicide. And again, if you feel that you're, again, I just want to be honest with you. I just want to be very clear with you, right? I'm only speaking for myself. Okay? As someone who has dealt with suicidal tendencies for a lot of my life, I've tried to kill myself 5 times, right? Seeing shit like this, I'm just saying, and I'm only speaking for myself, seeing shit like this is, this doesn't do any, and I've spoken to a lot of people that have depression issues that have also been suicidal. The suicide hotline works for some people, and that's great, more power to them. But I hate the way that normal people, neurotypical people, talk about suicide whenever they feel, trigger warning, call the suicide hotline. I don't want to deal with you. I don't care about you. I don't want to respond to anything you're saying. I'm not going to reach out to you to see if you're okay. I'm just going to post the suicide hotline, and I've absolved myself of any possible things I could have done. I just hate that mentality. A lot of people, I have seen interactions where someone is they ask someone for, not everyone is a licensed therapist, right? You don't need to, if someone might kill themselves and you feel you can't deal with that situation. Again, this is a very complicated scenario. But I just want to say, right? For me personally, whenever anyone has recommended the suicide hotline, it has always made me feel worse. I've tried calling the hotline. They've always made me feel worse, right? The people on there are really, in my experience, not good. Now, again, I'm only talking about myself. I would say it's worth a shot. But I just hate the way neurotypical people talk about suicide. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They think, if I just post a suicide hotline, I can wash my hands of any potential responsibility I have for anything. You know what I mean? It's just I hate the suicide hotline bullshit. Now, again, I'm glad it exists, right? It's really great that it exists. And it helps a lot of people. I know a lot of people that have been helped by the suicide hotline. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't exist. I'm just saying we need to really change the way we talk about suicide in the national consciousness. And neurotypical people that don't deal with these problems, they just think, I'll post the suicide hotline number and then move, then I post send message and then turn my phone off and then, I don't know, do whatever because I did my job. I don't know, man. But suicide is, of course, a symptom of a much larger problem, and that is that society is totally broken and that people feel like they're powerless, right? There have been many, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of deaths linked to the 2008 financial crash. Again, over the course of 2008, 9, and 10, you saw suicides skyrocket, right? And a lot of people, and there were a lot of people that documented that said notes that, I lost my house, I lost my family, I got nothing left, I'm in so much debt, I'm going to kill myself, right? That's happened. And that number, suicides have been going up and up and up for a long time, right? We saw over the pandemic, so many people killed themselves over the pandemic. So many people died from things like alcoholism, which you can say is a form of suicide, right? Again, I would say, sometimes when I've tried to kill myself, I've tried to use alcohol, right? So for me, right, if I were to have, let's say, drank too much and died or something, it would have probably not been reported. Well, it might have been, I don't know, but a lot of people die from alcoholism, make bad decisions when they're drunk, that kind of stuff. Again, the reason for this, suicide is a symptom of it. Now, there are some people, maybe it's possible, some people are beyond help. I don't think anyone is beyond help personally, but I'm open to the idea that some people just can't be saved. But if we restructured society so that people didn't lose everything every 10 years, if there wasn't a financial crash every 10 years and people didn't lose everything that they had worked for every once in a while, I think suicides would go down. If we lived in a society where you could go get healthcare if you need it. Oh, I want to talk to a therapist. Oh, wait, I need to come up with $700 per session. I'm not going to talk to a therapist. I can't afford it. I'm just going to kill myself. Think about this, right? Anyone, especially when these politicians, these shit fuck asshole politicians talk about suicide. How about you provide, free therapy sessions? How about you do something? Again, the idea that therapy is so expensive in this country is fucking ludicrous, right? I've tried therapy before, right? It's fucking expensive. If you don't have health insurance, you're not affording therapy, right? If you are thinking about killing yourself, chances are you don't have that much money. Where the fuck are you going to come up with several $100s per session, per week, fucking $1,000 a month just for therapy? You're not going to afford it. You're not going to afford it. You're going to kill yourself. And again, that's the situation that our country leads to. Our country's system, the system of society that we live in, breeds suicidal people, and it promotes suicide. No amount of posting the suicide hotline is going to undo the amount of death and suffering and despair that is caused by stuff like the health care system in this country, by stuff like climate change, forcing people to leave their homes because their homes get destroyed by hurricanes or fires or floods and all that fucking shit, right? No amount of posting the suicide hotline is going to undo the damage that's being done by the owners of this country, the owners of society, the billionaires, the fucking oligarchs that control the world, right? No amount, I'm going to post a suicide hotline and then just avoid talking about all the hard problems. Go fuck yourself. I'm sick of that shit. I'm sick of neurotypical people talking about suicide in cringy ways. In my opinion, if you have never, unless you're directly related to someone, if you are related to someone and if you feel, a certain way about them killing themselves, that's completely valid. But if you hear about a stranger, someone you've never heard of before, killing themselves, you've never heard of their name before they killed themselves, you have no right to talk about them, or, in my opinion, you look like a fool. Fuck yourself. I hate you. And I just want to say that. Anyway. So rest in power. I go to therapy because I suffer from anxiety of having to pay for therapy. It's fucking crazy.